Hello folks, Lewis here. I saw a quote the other day. A dog's carbon footprint, paw print, is twice that of a car. And this got me thinking, which is never a good idea. I initially thought, really? All a dog does is eat, sleep, run, poop, fart. Surely a dog doesn't have as big a carbon footprint as a car. I mean, for starters, you can't jump in and drive your dog to Scotland for a nice weekend break. Oh, well, I guess you technically could. I mean, you can't take your dog to a track day. Right, well, that wasn't what I had in mind, but yes, okay. You can't buy a shiny new dog to impress your friends. Well, again, okay, I guess some people can. Anyway, before we get stuck into that idea, however, if you like this video, consider hitting the subscribe button and giving us a thumbs up, so that we don't have to dispatch our army of Africanized rodents to chew your faces. Okay, so on with the video. So in the article, it's primarily the dog's diet which contributes to the environmental damage via CO2 emissions. In this case of all pets. Now I'm sure that's technically secondary to the amount of small mammals, reptiles, insects, birds, cats kill every year, but let's just gloss over that for now. So it states, most pets have a meat-based diet, which we know requires a lot of land, energy and water. And on this basis, it was calculated that a large dog requires around 1.1 hectares of land for food produced for its consumption during one single year. This is compared to a 4x4, a Toyota Land Cruiser in this example, driven 10,000 kilometres per year, or 6,230 miles, using the equivalent of 0.41 hectares of land, and which includes energy for fuel, construction and logistics. So initially I was confused, as I didn't think cars needed land to graze on, but I guess I get the premise. Now call me simple, but I prefer to see my carbon footprint in kilograms of CO2. But who can't easily visualise many metric tonnes of an invisible, tasteless, inert gas? So I decided to do two things. The first, to calculate the actual kilograms of CO2 per year for cars and for dogs using my own rough calculations. And second, to calculate the carbon footprint of our dear poucheddrats to compare. Could we officially crown a pouchedrat as an eco-friendly pet? For this, I think we're going to need to do some maths. Before we do this, let's set some terms and conditions.
All figures and statistics are gathered from other people's websites and/or my own terrible and probably incorrect calculations. Being a moron, and that my calculations are almost certainly wrong, none of this should be used to draw any credible conclusion. Any hurt or damage to reputation caused by quoting these figures to any other human being in order to sound smart and being told you are wrong is of no liability to me. Terms and conditions apply. Your house may be repossessed if you do not keep up payments.
Right, so on with the calculations. Let's all make note of how many times I use the word average going forward. Okay, so using dogs as our first calculation, I'm going to use a website for calculating figures. In my example, I'm going to take an average male Labrador retriever weighing 30 kilograms. Again, considered an average weight. A good, average, healthy amount to feed a dog of this size is stated as being 800 grams per day. Okay, so what's the common ingredients in dog food? So we can plug these into our calculator. I'm going to assume that someone is feeding 50% wet and 50% dry food. Now yes, I know there are some specialised diets like raw and many different brands, but I consider this to be the most common, dare I say average diet to be given to dogs in the UK. So for my example, I'm going to use the average ingredients for each of these types of feed that I can find. So for wet food, that's 65% animal derivatives and 35% grains and other ingredients. For dry foods, that's 39% animal derivatives and 61% grains and other ingredients. Brilliant. Let's try plugging these into our calculator for a single day's feed. Okay, so for our wet food, we have 5,835 grams of CO2 equivalent for 800 grams. And for dry food, we have 3,770 grams of CO2 equivalent for 800 grams. Now let's take half of these add them together for our total per day feeding of our Labrador Retriever, and that comes in at 4,802 grams of CO2 or 4.8 kilograms per day. Let's times that by 365 days and we get a total of 1,752 kilograms of CO2 per year for our dear Labrador Retriever. Now I've seen various figures online ranging from as low as 700 kilograms to as high as 2,500 kilograms per year for a dog. So this sounds plausible. Excellent. So we now have our dog's carbon footprint. We now need a car. So the average miles driven by a person in the UK is stated in 2019 as being 7,400 miles. So we can use another simple online calculator to get an idea of the CO2 used. This gives for a standard mid-sized car at 4,100 kilograms per year for 7,400 miles driven. So from here I have to question these cars versus dogs comparison, unless I've completely buggered up my methods, which to be fair is entirely possible. A dog uses 2,348 kilograms of CO2 less per year than a car. Okay, so what about pouch rats? How do they compare? Okay, well we can use the same methods that we used for our dogs. Let's get some good basic measurements for what we feed our delightful little heads. We would feed on average our pouch rats around 50 grams of dry food and 100 grams of fruit and or vegetables each day. Let's do 20 grams of 5 different fruit and veg. In our example, we're going to choose watermelon, bananas, apple, spring greens and avocado. So for our Pouchie's fruit fly attracting dinner, that's 113 grams of CO2 per day per Pouchie. So what about the dry part? Okay, I'm going to pick a few ingredients from the dry mix and divide them up equally. Now I am not picking through a 50 gram sample and weighing each individual part unless someone is willing to give me a white lab coat, goggles and a PhD. Let's pick 12.5 grams of sunflower seeds, banana chips, peanuts and dried corn. Okay, so our dry part is 65 grams per day. That gives our total pouch rat carbon footprint at 178 grams per day or 64.9 kilograms per year. So another way of expressing that would be 27 pouch rats per Labrador or 63 pouch rats per medium-sized family car. Interesting. Isn't it great that I've also done the exact same calculations for small dogs, hamsters and mice. So now let's see that in a nice, shiny, fantastic looking graph to see how our leaderboard compares. So finally, we have 11 pouch rats. So what would be our total for our 11 pouch rats? Now I want to calculate what I want to call Environmental Pouch Rat Attrition Total, or EPRAT for short. And our final figure comes to 713.9 kilograms per year. So what's our final conclusion from this? Well, are pouch rats eco-friendly? Could they maybe be considered the pet for the environmentally conscious? Well, compared to a dog, yeah, sure. Compared to a mouse, not quite so much. And here, we've come full circle to the end to find the footprint of our dear pouch rats. Have we proved anything? Who knows? Have we had fun along the way? Probably not. My name is Lewis, and we hope to see you in the next one.